So yeah, so the scene that I was talking about, which was, where this lizard guy comes to the school and, he kind of has all the kids start running one way and he gets everybody out of there. And then he runs toward the lizard and he's kind of beating him up, and the lizard knows who he is, and, it's in the middle of the school. And I thought that seemed like something that would happen in the comics, where he just takes on this lizard and with all, he's at school, I thought that different villains have met him at school before and places where he is.
Ultimate Spider-Man.
And he has to, yeah, that's what I'm thinking of, the Ultimate Spider-Man series. And, and he has to quickly get his suit on and either that or even fight without a suit. At first, he kind of zapped him when he didn't have his suit on, when Gwen is, like, kind of looking and running away. And, so I thought that was very Spider-Man-y of him. I really like the scene where he discovers his powers and he's messing around. I remember in the Tobey Maguire version, it's very grand, and it's like he just, puts one hand on there and then another hand, and it's like, oh, this is so cool. And I think you, hun, I think you like the fact that he has, mechanical web stuff.
That's in the comics.
And that's in the comics.
That's not a spoiler.
So it's not a spoiler, I'm sorry. But, so I could have put this in the other section, but, who knows? You can move the spoiler thing if you want to a different section, I don't know. So anyway, yeah, I really, that was very interesting because it kind of brought out, apparently Gwen Stacy is number 1 in her whole class of science, which is obviously why she works at Oscorp, which I even had a hard time with that, because if you're in high school, I mean, come on, no one's gonna trust you with all these codes and stuff. Like,
yeah, she wasn't super intelligent in the comics.
Yeah, see, and then Peter Parker's number 2 in his class. Yeah, so good. See, that was weird to me. I was like, why would they trust a high school girl with all this stuff? She has like a code to get into even the most inner parts of Oscorp, where they're doing all this, like, cutting edge research. I mean, seriously, I've worked at a bank before and I've worked at insurance agencies, and, even though I've gone to college and stuff, they still, you had to get a code and everything. You had to have, and you couldn't just walk in there without, even if you had the code, you can't just walk in there and do it whenever you want, So I thought it was a little unrealistic sometimes about that. Unless she's a super genius and, she's like, who's that, what's that show with the kid who teaches a class when he's 9 years old or something? The anime.
Nejima.
Nejima. That's what it seemed like to me. She was like being like a Nejima. Like, they were making her so unrealistically intelligent that it wasn't even funny. That's how I feel.
They took that from the Spectacular Spider-Man, Gwen.
It's just,
She was an assistant of
There was
Dr.
no
Connors.
way. It's just no way. Like, you couldn't even begin working on, you couldn't know all that stuff by the time.
I just told you where they took that from.
Yeah, okay.
They took it from Spectacular Spider-Man. This
shame
movie,
on you, Spectacular Spider-Man, because...
No, Spectacular Spider-Man was awesome.
Okay.
Amazing Spider-Man is a conglomerate of all, of Spectacular Spider-Man, Ultimate Spider-Man comics, the original Spider-Man comics in the 60s and 70s, and it also has some elements of the 90s Spider-Man cartoon show. So this guy really did his homework.
Yeah, they did. I'm just thinking, when I was saying Japan, Japanese schools are really awesome. Mm-hmm. In America, I was the top of my class, and, I was in all honors classes in science. There's no way I understood half of what they were talking about with all the science stuff. So I was like, there's no way in an American school, in a public school, that she would be that smart. Like, I'm sorry. Maybe in Japan.
Japan, yes.
So
public school,
that's all I have to say about that. That I found myself a little jealous, but I did. There was a lot of really cute little touching points. They made it the way that his Uncle Ben died different, and this is definitely a spoiler. But and the whole way that he ended up being a vigilante is how he kind of was trying to avenge his Uncle Ben, which is interesting.
That's
Find the guy.
comics.
It is. Okay, so I never knew that story plot. And apparently they did the same kind of thing that they had in the Tobey Maguire, Kirsten Dunst movies, where, he let somebody go who was, robbing somebody, and then he was like, oh, not my policy. Instead of not my problem, he meant not my policy. And then the guy ended up shooting his Uncle Ben. But, man, they had Uncle Ben put up a fight, though, in this one. You actually saw him get shot because he was being a hero, trying to stop the guy. So that was a lot different than the other one where there were all these people around and Uncle Ben's just on the ground. You don't know why. But in this one, he was actually the reason that Uncle Ben was out there on the street at all was he was looking for Peter Parker, because Peter Parker slammed the door, broke the glass in his Uncle Ben and Aunt May's house because he was upset about something. Well, Uncle Ben wanted him to apologize because he had forgotten to pick Aunt May up, which was because of another problem that he caused earlier. He was just causing problems all the time. Like, since he got bit, he just kept messing up, like, again and again. And it made me really not like him. Like, in the movies that I liked, you know, the Kirsten Dunst, Tobey Maguire, the only ones that I've seen, you know, he messed up, like, one time. He said, oh, I'm gonna come and paint, you know, and he didn't. But this guy, in this movie, he kept messing up again and again. I felt really bad. I thought they were gonna kick him out of the house. Like, he got into trouble at school, and then, you know, his Uncle Ben had to switch shifts, then he was supposed to pick up his Aunt May. His Aunt May had to walk, like, blocks in a bad neighborhood and take the subway, and so his Uncle Ben was mad at him, because he was like, you need to give her an apology, you know, and after he was upset because of his parents, and they actually yelled at his Uncle Ben and Aunt May about it, and he was like, well, your father said, you know, that you're supposed to, you know, he believed that if you have strengths, you need to use them to help people, and that you should always do what's right. And he's like, well, where is my father? Where is he? And he's like yelling at them. So I was just thinking, wow, this guy is a lot different from the one that I really liked in the 3 Spider-Man movies that were out, I don't know how many years ago.
2007.
So I don't know how that is in the comics, but he was very upset. And one thing I thought was interesting, and then that's his Uncle Ben actually ends up getting shot because he's out looking for Peter Parker, because Peter Parker is outside. He keeps coming home with bruises and stuff. And then, you know, when Uncle Ben, you know, dies, then he really loses it and starts looking around for the guy with the stars imprinted on his left, you know, hand so that he can... I don't know what he's going to do when he finds him. He hasn't found him yet. But, man, I'd hate to be that guy. Because a few of the guys he takes down, he's like, you're lucky, this could have been worse. So, it's like, wow, he's kind of dark a little bit. And even Flash, they made Flash, you know, do some mean stuff to him at the beginning, but they have the whole thing where he beats up Flash. He doesn't beat up Flash, he messes with him. He's like, take this, you know, basketball out of my hand, you know. And he won't, you know, obviously it's like stuck to his hand, and he's so quick, he's, you know, he's not letting Flash get it out of his hand, and he's messing with him. And then he ends up, like, dunking it and, like, actually breaking the glass of the backboard of the basketball hoop at schools. That's why Uncle Ben has to get off his work. So it's interesting, you know, they have the same kind of ideas that were in the original Spider-Man movies that I saw. But, I don't know, they just happen in different ways. But it's weird because in this movie, Flash has a little bit of heart when he hears that Uncle Ben, you know, died and stuff. He's like, hey, you know, how are you doing and stuff. And he just, like, kind of slams, you know, Flash up against a locker, and it's just like, he thought Flash was messing with him, and then he realizes, he's like, hey, it's okay, I understand your uncle died. And he's, like, not okay, like, at all. And I'm really confused that he wasn't, I mean, in the original movies that I saw, I don't know even if I can say if they were original. I'm sure there's been other Spider-Man movies before that time.
70s.
Yeah. But the ones that I saw in the, what was it, the 90s or the 2000s? I don't know when they were. I don't even remember. I can't think of dates, but, you know, he was very broken up about it. Like, oh my gosh, it's my fault. And in this movie, he didn't say much of that at all. Even though it was more his fault in this movie than it was in the movies that I saw previously. I mean, his Uncle Ben wouldn't even be outside looking for him if it wasn't for him. So, I mean, that was really weird to me. But, Let's see. What else did I really have to touch on? Yeah, so I thought Flash was had more of a heart this time, because then he had that one scene with him, and then the second scene where he was like, "Oh, it's okay, your dad died, I understand," and then the next, or your uncle, and then the next time, Flash kind of sees him in the hallway towards the end of the film, and he's like, "Hey, how are you doing, Parker?" He's like, you look like you're doing better," and he kind of like nudges him, or I don't know if gives him a noogie or something, rubs his head. I don't know what people do. I don't remember exactly, but nice like kind of pal around kind of thing. So it's like, even though they're kind of frenemies, but at least it's like Flash actually cares about him, which is weird. Because I always thought Flash was just mean to Peter Parker all the time and never cared about him, but in this one it's like at least he has some kind of humanity to him, so I liked that. And what else did I really have to touch on about this movie that was really important? Oh yeah, well, I did not know. Now, in the comics, is Gwen Stacy's dad the chief of police?
He's a police officer. He may have been chief. I don't
This
remember.
one, he is the chief of police, but wow, his character was really well done. The actor who played him, man, I wish that and yes, I'm in the spoiler section, so I wish he was not killed off, because he is killed off in this movie. And he has a change of heart. This guy, I think he's one of the pivotal people in this movie that makes this movie really good. The guy who plays him, I don't know what his name is, but he did a fantastic job. But, you meet him at dinner, and, Peter Parker is it reminds me of Zorro, when Zorro's talking about, "Oh, I think Zorro's a good person," and the other people are like, "Oh, Zorro's a vigilante, he should be taken down," but it just reminds me of that, but Peter Parker's kind of like, he needs to keep his identity better, because he kept sticking up for Spider-Man against Gwen Stacy's dad, and so much so that he kind of had to like leave the family dinner and apologize, like, "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to," because he kept saying, "What do you think, we're not doing anything, he's like, "This guy's a vigilante, he needs to be stopped," and but then he has a change of heart. I think when he's kind of dying, Gwen Stacy's dad, so it must be Commissioner Stacy or Captain. I don't remember.
It's Captain Stacy.
Captain Stacy, that's what it is. Yep. He says, "I was wrong." He's like, "This world does need a Spider-Man," and then he's like, "Just stay away from Gwen. Promise me." And he's sitting there like, "What? I don't want to stay away from Gwen." And then so he promises him. And then after her dad dies, the lizard guy ends up killing her dad, and Spider-Man was helping him, fight off the lizard guy, and he's like, "It's okay, I've got it," and Spider-Man's kind of thinking, "What? Like, how can you," because I don't know, he's just thinking, "What?" Because, well, I mean, they are spraying, liquid nitrogen at him, so, at the lizard guy, so you would think, okay, we have it covered, we have liquid nitrogen coming out by the bucket load at this guy, so it should be okay. But obviously, apparently, this lizard guy can just regenerate so fast that he ended up stabbing him with his claws through the guy's stomach, through Captain Stacy's stomach, and man, I was just like, oh, I didn't want that to happen, because it was like he was just starting to understand who Spider-Man was, and he just found out who he was recently, because, they had him. I mean, they got him tranquilized. They got Spider-Man tranquilized, and he was, like, down on the ground, all these guys around him, and, it's just like, Commissioner Stacy's got a gun to his head, and he takes off his hood, and it's kind of like, it's me, and then he's kind of like, I need to save Gwen, she's at Oscorp, the lizard guy is going to Oscorp, and he's like, okay, go, and then he's like, hold your fire, and one guy shoots him anyway, because he didn't hear him say, hold your fire, so then he's all wounded, and then everyone in the state of New York helps Spider-Man out, like, somebody who he saved somebody's kid before, when the lizard guy had, like, broken this bridge, and the kid was gonna totally fall off the bridge, Spider-Man had saved him, and, he lo and behold, this guy runs a crane operation or something, so he got all the guys who run the cranes to help Spider-Man because he was wounded, which I thought was pretty cool, because doesn't that happen in the comics sometimes? People had a love-hate relationship with Spider-Man. First they were like, oh, he's a vigilante, he's no good, and then sometimes they were like, let's help him and stuff. I mean, has that ever happened, or no?
Ultimate Spider-Man.
Oh, okay. Well, that's kind of what happened in this movie. So, I thought I remembered that happened at some point. So they've taken a lot of stuff from Ultimate Spider-Man, I guess.
Most of the movie is taken from Ultimate Spider-Man.
So, yeah, so they did that, and, I thought Emma Stone did a phenomenal job playing Gwen Stacy, and I agree with her that, she should be true to her character and that Gwen should, die. Not just because Mary Jane, I like Mary Jane. Okay, maybe. But I think, they should be true to the comics and stuff. But, it's gonna be hard because I am starting to like Gwen Stacy. She's pretty cool. But I am totally jealous of her with her
Wow, that guy put his hand right through me.
Yeah, that's amazing. But yeah, they have this guy. I thought that was very interesting that when Captain Stacy dies, he said, just stay away from Gwen. He's like, you're going to have enemies. Just keep Gwen out of it. And then Gwen is pretty mad at Peter Parker when, he doesn't show up to the funeral, he doesn't see her at all in class, he just kind of ignores her, and then she's just like, my dad said that he wanted you to stay away from me, didn't he? And he didn't say anything. And then he comes into class, like, one day, and the teacher's like, you're late, but he's like, well, we can always count on you to be here, Peter Parker, even though you're late, and he's like, I'm sorry, it won't happen again. And then the teacher's like, don't make promises you can't keep. And then he whispers in Gwen's ear, because he sits behind Gwen, and he hasn't talked to her in a long time. He's like, yeah, but those are the best kinds of promises. And she smiles, and that's kind of like the end of the movie. And then, of course, they have this weird scene after all the credits with, what's his name? Doctor, the guy with Connors. And he's in prison, but I think, he has, I don't know if it's somebody talking to him or if it's his other side, his evil side talking to him. I don't know if that's from the comics or if that's just from the movies, but...
It's either Morbius or it's Norman Osborn.
I can't tell if it was...
It's not a split personality, it's another person.
But he did have kind of a split personality at one point in the movie, earlier, when his lizard self was kind of like being crazy.
Yeah, they took that from the first Spider-Man movie.
Yeah, but I really felt, one thing I missed in this movie was, okay, so it probably was somebody else, because I thought I saw someone in the shadows in his prison cell.
It's either Morbius or Norman Osborn, who they talk about in the movie, but you don't see.
Yeah. But, what I missed, from the original Spider-Man movies that I saw in the 90s or whenever they came out, was I thought Norman Osborn did a great job of his crazy split personality, I was like, oh.
He didn't really have one.
But he was like talking to himself in the mirror and stuff,
yeah,
that was
in the movie.
Yeah, in the movie, yeah. I thought the movie was great with that.
In the comics, he didn't really have one. He kind of talked to himself in the third person, but he didn't.
Yeah. So this is my question. Dr. Connors, he is in the comics, is he? So he is. And does he turn into a lizard in the comics, or...
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So anyway, this movie was pretty much about, he was trying to infect the entire population and turn them into lizards. Population. And that is why, if it wasn't for Captain Stacy, everyone would have been lizard people, because he fended off the lizard guy while Spider-Man was able to get the antidote that Gwen got from Oscorp. And she got that for him. And she was kind of heroic, because Peter Parker was like, get out of there. And she's like, he's like, I don't care, the lizard guy is up there going towards Oscorp. And she's like, I'll get everyone else out. And he's like really mad at her, because he's like, why can't she just leave? So she's kind of like a crazy heroic person too. So she is kind of the same personality as Peter, because she's thinking, I have to get this antidote. I don't care. I may be risking my life, but I have to get this. And it's kind of like, wow. And there was a scene where the lizard actually came right up to her face and almost killed her, and while she was in Oscorp, and it's like, oh my gosh, you could just see her, she screamed, and I would have screamed too if that thing jumped at me. But, yeah, so if it wasn't for Captain Stacy, and, you know, Gwen played a big part in it too, but Captain Stacy fended that lizard off so that Spider-Man could go up there and switch the toxin for the antidote, and it would go over the whole city in a cloud. And so instead of everybody turning into lizards, all the people that he had already turned into lizards when he had little tiny vials of it that he, like, poofed off when he gave to policemen, like, in a cloud of smoke when they were trying to kill him. They were all healed, including himself, and he got healed too. And then in the end, which I thought was really nice, I don't know how it was in the comics, but towards the end, as Dr. Connors, you know, his as he has the toxin in it more and more, at first he's like, I just want to regenerate my arm, I just want to help people. As he has the toxin more and more in him, he starts to think, like, irrationally, you know, like, oh, well, now I see that humans are weak and we should all be lizard people and all this stuff, you know. It's just like he starts going kind of crazy, partly because his funding is taken away and they give him an ultimatum, which is, you know, what drives him there. There's always something that drives you to be evil. Not you, but people. Okay, drives evil, crazy people to be evil. But as the antidote is white, you know, covering him in this cloud, it's like he starts to think more clearly, and Spider-Man almost, like, falls off the building and dies, and it is Dr. Connors who grabs him, so he doesn't die. And then he's like, his conscience gets to him, and he's like, oh my gosh, you know, Captain Stacy, and they go back. Of course, Captain Stacy is totally dying, and Captain Stacy's like, you know, you have to leave, you know, you can't be seen here, you're gonna have enemies, and the whole Gwen thing. So anyway, so that's pretty much, yeah, that's it. I really liked the movie. The music was really good. The whole movie seemed like the comics, or I haven't really read the comics, but I guess maybe what I was thinking the movie seemed like was Ultimate Spider-Man, which I've watched a lot with K-Wing. So it seemed a lot like the cartoons, which are as close to the comics as I can get right now. Someday maybe I can read the comics, but it seemed like Gwen Stacy and Peter Parker were very much like each other. They both like science, and they're both crazy, kind of.
Spectacular Spider-Man.
They're both crazy people who are going to do anything to save other people, even includes risking their own lives, which is a little insane.
Spectacular Spider-Man.
Really? Yeah. So overall, I felt like, yeah, like you were saying, hun, the people really did their research, and I just wanted to tell everyone what I thought about the movie. I really liked it. There were some really touching moments in it. I really enjoyed when he saved the little kid, and he told the little kid was so afraid, you know, to climb out of this car that Spider-Man had, you know, he was hanging on to the car, you know, by his tips of his fingers, and he was telling the little kid he had to climb up, and the little kid was so afraid. At first, the little kid didn't want to climb up, you know, and, you know, it's just like, he gave him his at first the kid didn't even want anything to do with him. Then he took off his little hood, and then he could see that Spider-Man was a real person, and he wasn't as afraid. And then the kid was still afraid because the car started catching on fire, and then he's like, oh my gosh, I need you to climb, and he's like, I can't, and he's frozen with fear, and he's like, put my hood on, it'll make you strong. I thought that moment was so sweet, and you know, it was really, he did everything he could, and he did save that kid, and I don't know, there was a lot of, I love movies that kind of teach you a lesson, like, about, you know, morals and stuff like that, and I kind of realized that in this movie, there was a difference between, you know, that Captain Stacy's idea, like, oh, we're keeping those people on the street because we're trying to get to the big people, and Spider-Man is saying in his conversation with him, well, he doesn't know he's Spider-Man yet, Peter Parker, he's like, well, Spider-Man cares about saving, you know, innocent people, that's what it's all about, and you get the feeling like Spider-Man cares about saving all the little people. He actually cares about each and every person he saves. I wish he would have said, someone's like, who are you? After his, you know, his kid was saved, I wish he would have said, I'm your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, but he didn't say that. I was disappointed. But
what did he say?
He just said I'm Spider-Man. And that was the first time he ever said his name was Spider-Man. I guess he decided right then and there that would be his name. But, So, yeah, so that's my take on the movie. I talked way too long. I took up your time, so that's what I have to say. I loved the movie.
Gonna have to split this in 2 videos.
Yeah, we will. So, I love the movie. Thanks for watching, everyone. Thanks for taking the time to check this movie out, and I hope that after you've seen the movie that you will watch this second half of what I just said, which obviously if you're listening to this you already have watched this part. So alright, you guys have a great night. Yes, I was gonna say stay frosty. I don't know any cool Spider-Man things to say. I don't really know. You know anything, babe?
Nope.
Alright, well, have a great night, everybody, or day, whatever this is, and I'll catch you all later. Check out our Let's Plays on our K-Wing Let's Plays channel, and of course, you know, all the content going on K-Wing Reviews, but right now we're doing a lot of stuff on our K-Wing Let's Plays channel, so definitely check that out, including our contest, and you should definitely check that out. Alright, have a great day, everyone. God bless and happy gaming.